So just to switch things up a bit and tie it all in with the title of this video, I thought a voiceover during this descent clip would be a nice change, and I don't need to be in front of the camera, which is a win for everyone. I think you'll all agree. So since the build video, I'm about 4000k into this custom titanium weenie bike. Been doing quite a few of the bigger 200k plus rides. That was my main goal for this bike. And with the 320k and 6000 meters of climbing being my biggest test this far. And if there's something I can say about this bike, it's that it's the best descender I've ever had. And that doesn't take anything away from the other areas. Like I said in my first impressions, it climbs like a light 6.6 kilo bike. It has that titanium comfort. I mentioned I feel like I'm riding on bigger tires than I actually am. It's pretty much ideal for the type of riding I'm doing. But the descending really stands out, and I think that's because I decided to use the wrong fork. I hinted this in episode 3, but just to summarize, we designed the geometry around a 45mm offset fork together with a 72.5 degree head angle, and with 28mm tires that will give me a nice and stable 60mm trail figure. And for those who don't know, trail is the distance between that tire contact patch with the road and that head angle. If you look at my geometry chart here, you can see the tire contact point trails behind the steering angle. A very simplified explanation: the larger fork offset or fork rake, the more you're pushing the tire contact point closer to the steer angle, and you get a smaller trail figure. And that leads to a quicker steering as a result. Now there's other things that influence bike handling as well, but trail tends to be a pretty big factor. Anyway, I had the opportunity to try the other version of the number 6 composite fork that comes with a 50mm offset, and that brings the trail down to a 55mm figure, so it should make the bike a bit more twitchy. It's important to mention though that by increasing the fork offset, it also means that the wheelbase increases by the same amount, and that can have the opposite effect to bike handling. All else equal, a longer bike will probably feel less nimble. With that confusing explanation out of the way, with the so-called correct fork, the 45mm offset, the bike felt exactly as I had imagined it would. It would be surprising otherwise, I guess, going full custom. Very nice and stable. Balanced would be a very fitting description, even though that's probably what you might find in a marketing blurb, I guess. But when I switched forks, I initially didn't feel much of a difference at all. Definitely nothing close to what some people claim, that a 5mm different trail would make the bike unrideable. But once I got to descending, especially really steep and twisted descents, that's where I felt the difference. The 50mm offset fork that gave me 55mm of trail gave me this very quick corner initiation. Is that the word? It just dives into corners with minimal effort. And for me, who really loves descending, this was extremely fun. It has a slightly uneven characteristic through the whole turn, where initially it's very quick. It holds the line pretty good, but it feels like the exit of the corner is somehow less quick. Weird explanation. Unlike the correct fork, it feels very balanced through the whole turn. I realize this sounds very flimsy or vague, but that's my subjective take on it. All in all, I don't think I'm necessarily faster going down on either fork. I've improved my personal best and taking downhill KMs on both forks, but I do feel I have more fun descending on the 50mm offset fork with that 55mm trail, and that's what really matters in the end. And as a bonus, I have less toe overlap with the longer wheelbase. I'll link to the geometry chart in the description again for those who really want to nerd out on all those numbers. But with the fork out of the way, I need to mention the wheels as well. You have all the specs in episode 2 linked down below, but after the riding and quite a bit now, I just have to say, god damn, I love these wheels. They are my lightest wheel, they climb like a dream and all that crap, but I think the biggest win for me is the 24mm internal width. The cornering just feel like perfection, even on my Panaracer Agilist tires that people seem to have mixed feelings about regarding grip. And having ridden the same tires on my other wheels with 21mm internal, I wasn't very impressed with the grip either. But on these AR25 rims, it almost feels like a different tire going downhill. And that really has me thinking about trying different tires that have received better feedback in terms of grip. Would I feel even more confident on a pair of GP5000 SDR, for example? It's something to investigate in the future, I think. It is hard to get over the affordability and the weight of the Panaracer tires here in Japan though, so we'll see what happens. While we're on the subject of wheels, the Galfer disc rotors, hands down my new go-to disc rotor. I already got a set from my other wheels, and while those are 6-bolt rotors, once my center lock discs needs to be replaced, I will definitely pick up the center lock Galfer as well. The weight is the same as the carbon tie rotor, which I also really like, but when you can get 4 Galfer rotors for the price of 1 carbon tie rotor, it's hard to justify. Apart from 1 rotor out of 4 needing to be trued out of the box, they have given me 0 issues. Braking has been excellent, no warping or unexpected rubbing, and apart from the absolute wettest condition, they have been pretty much dead silent. Center lock version is a bit heavier as usual when it comes to disc rotors, but it's a good reminder that if you want to build the absolute lightest wheel system possible, go with the 6-bolt hub. And speaking of hubs, the only really negative I have to say about this wheel is the loud ass hub. I hear people actually prefer loud hubs. I also hear people think the world is flat. Doesn't mean they are correct, but hey, you do you. Apart from the noise, the carbon tie hubs has been great though, and with the price tag in mind and the sub 1100 grams weight for the complete wheel set, the sound is a compromise I'm willing to live with. Finally, I just want to mention what's changed to the build since the last episode. First, I had to ditch the Schmolke TLO stem. I think the universe knew I wasn't 100% happy with how that stem looked on this bike. And when the faceplate developed a crack, I swear, I didn't do it on purpose. I took the opportunity to change it up. First, just the classic Uno stem to get the bike rideable, and eventually getting the Extralite Hyper stem. Having owned the Hyperstem in the past, I was surprised to find out that once again they lowered the torque spec and they changed the bolt heads to T15 torques, and that messes up my everyday ride kit quite a bit. More on that in another video. But that said, the 2 Nm torque limit has worked without issues, no bar slippage at all, so I can't really complain. In terms of weight, including the Garmin mount, it's pretty much the same weight as the Schmolke stem, but I got the GoPro mount on the Extralite setup, which I frequently used on my afterwork rides. On the old stem, I had to use a separate mount for the light, so you could argue there's a few bonus grams saved. Happy days. Another little change lately is I put on my bare carbon Berk Lupina saddle on. I've had this saddle for probably like 5 years, and my reason for not using it much in the past was never comfort. It was just because I kept sliding around on the saddle. But as my fit has changed over the years, that's not really an issue anymore, and I've been enjoying this saddle the last month or so. As for the weight, 20 grams saved over the padded Lupina. The weight has already been offset, unfortunately, because I had to top out some sealant. So all in all, the weight is pretty much the same as it was on the build day. Can you hear those Japanese summer bugs? I think it was a good call doing that voice-over thingamajig. But anyway, I thought I would do kind of a wrap-up of this whole project. As you might have figured out already, I'm extremely happy with how this bike turned out and the whole experience of coming up with it from initial idea to finished bike, so to say. Not only did it turn out to meet my expectations for the kind of riding I'm doing, like long all-day rides, these kinds of beautiful Japanese mountains, but I also hit my weight goal, which is below 6.8 for a titanium disc brake bike. Normally you don't really see that often. You see very nice titanium bikes, but there's like 7.5, usually 8 and above. So yeah, that was one goal. I'm very happy to manage to hit that. It doesn't mean that this bike is kind of done. Everything is always in motion and I have ideas in the future, but I will tackle that when that happens. If I were to do this whole thing again though, there's probably only one thing I would change, and that is the frame finish on the front of the bike, the glass blast. I love the look of it, but goddamn, it is borderline impossible to keep clean. And Vlad warned me about this, so it's not a surprise. I took it as a challenge because I really love cleaning my bikes. Weird, I know, but I do. But even though I can almost get this pristine, it is a challenge, definitely. So that's all well and good, but like 5 minutes or even less into a ride, if you get a drop of sweat on this surface, or if you just touch it with your hands, it just leaves massive prints, and you won't get that off until you do the next proper clean. And yeah, it kind of gets to me after a while. Yeah, I've put a lot of effort into getting this clean, and yeah, 1 second later, it's full of print and stuff like that. So hurts my heart at times. So that's probably the only thing I would change. Otherwise, yeah, I'm freaking stoked. And I hope you enjoyed this custom weight weenie saga as much as I did. And yeah, I think I will go do some more descending, because this bike, it's the goddamn best descender I've ever had. Love it. Catch you in the next one. Peace.